Welcome to the Release Your Blocks podcast. I am your host, Victoria Bond. I am a spiritual empowerment coach. I help teach others to show up to their potency so they can fulfill their mission here on earth. I am so glad you are here. And if you are interested in becoming a medium, if you're interested in becoming a life coach, or if you're interested in shifting your life from the 3D to live more in the 5D reality, then check me out, book a clarity call, and let's get chatting. Hey guys, I'm Victoria Bond and welcome to Release Your Blocks. Before we get into today's episode, I just have an announcement. My magnificent mediumship program is now launched. This is starting on January the 11th, 2021. I have been guided by my guides and by my spirit team that now is the time to shift energetically and spiritually. Now is the time to evolve and to become more conscious and to spread this with our gifts. So if you are interested in joining Magnificent Mediumship, I have a special offer for you. Until the 11th of December, I have an early bird special. So check the notes, book in a call, check out the website, www.halohealing.nz, to see if you are a fit for Magnificent Mediumship, and I'll love to connect with you soon. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode of Release Your Blocks. Today I'm going to share a story of something that happened to me this week. And it is quite a unique story. It's quite out there, to be honest. But I want to share this with you because I really want to share that coincidences, synchronicities, and sometimes imagination is actually valid when it comes to talking to spirit, seeing spirit, and getting messages from spirit. So in the celebration of my magnificent mediumship program being launched this week, I really desired to share this with you. So the other day, I went to get a tattoo from my incredible tattoo artist who I absolutely adore. And, you know, she's one of those people that I feel like I instantly knew, like a soul connection. Like we could sit there and talk for hours and we already knew each other. You know how that happens when you meet someone, you're like, oh, I recognize you. That's how I've always felt with my tattoo artist. She's phenomenal. And I'm sure other people feel that way about her as well. But anyway, what happened was I got the date wrong. So I get this message after I had a one-to-one call with one of my clients. And this message is like, hey, you're meant to be getting your tattoo now. Where are you? And this is very unlike me. Like this very rarely happens. I have things in my diary, but I literally had it on the wrong day. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I had to cancel my client, jump in the car, race into town. I run and I'm an hour and a half late. And thank goodness she could still see me. So I didn't make anything wrong about it. I just thought, okay, something might happen today. Divine timing and all, everything happens for a reason. I don't know why I ran late and got the wrong day, but just whatever, like I'll go with it because something incredible may come out of this, whatever that means. So here I am and I'm getting my tattoo and I keep feeling like there's an energy of a man standing in the tattoo studio. So I'm like, okay, the way I work is I do require evidence because I do have an active mind. We all have active minds. We all imagine things. We all visualize things. So how do you know what is actually spirit or what is a part of your imagination? So here I am lying there just talking to her. I mean, I've got 3.5 hours of lying on my side while I'm getting my arm tattooed. So I knew I had time. And I was thinking, this isn't the time, Victoria. It's not the time to go showing off your medium skills. You're here to be here, like, you know, receiving the tattoo. So you're not here to be doing readings. So just chill out, relax. And I thought, okay, cool. So I didn't say anything. And then I kept asking questions, but every half an hour, is that man still there? Is that energy still there? And then I was like, oh, okay, now I can see the energy. And what I mean by seeing the energy is I don't see it with my eyes, but I ask to see the energy. So I ask for them to show me more and I can see it in my head. Like even right now, as I'm talking about it, I can see him very, very clearly in my head. Does that mean he's here while I'm talking to you? Quite possibly. But But anyway, without making it significant, here's what happened. So after about an hour and a half into our session, and I've visualized this man 3 times, I say to her, I feel like there's a male energy around, and he's quite tall. He's got a big smile on his face. He's bald. He's got white hair on each side, because this is the different kind of pictures that I'm getting shown in my head, which is making this one picture standing in the corner of the room type of thing. And it's not really creepy. It's just kind of like an awareness that someone's there. Like if you're out in a restaurant and you have an awareness that there's a lady and a man over there eating their dinner, but they're not bothering you type of thing. So you just carry on focusing on what you're focusing on, unless you look over there and you see them. It's that type of energy. And so she said, oh, yeah. It's probably my granddad. He comes through quite often. And I went, yeah, well, it's definitely a grandfather energy, because they show me how they feel. So I literally can feel that it was a grandfather energy, because I know how I feel about my granddad. So they show me that feeling. So it's always kind of like a comparing thing. So they show me scenarios, so then I can feel it or see it, or they'll show me a picture of someone else and there might be something similar. So anyway, I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, he's standing right there, and I could visualize him quite solid. So I could see him very clearly, where sometimes it's quite pixeled, or they'll show it like a film type of thing. So I always see things differently. But I thought, this man he comes here quite often, doesn't he? Because he's quite strong in his presence. So anyway, I said, okay, I'll ask some questions. And all of a sudden I was like, okay. So he's wearing red. So I've got something red about him. He's quite tall. So I'd say he's about 6 foot. He's got no hair on top, but he's got white hair on each side. And he's very, 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 and I was trying to find the word to what matched what I could see. And she goes, jovial? And I went, yes, that's the word. He's got this giant smile with kind of like these red cheeks, and he's just really interested in our conversation. And I mean, some of the conversations my tattoo artist and I have is about, ETs and spaceships and the 5D and the things that are happening, and like some pretty far out things. But to us, it's not that far out. So he was really enjoying the conversation. He found it fascinating. So as we were sitting there talking, and I was like, oh, this is fun. This is interesting. And I was like, oh, I can see an old lady next to him, like kind of behind him, like hiding, but it's not your grandma. I feel like it's like his mother, like a great grandmother, but she's really old, and she's wearing like a nightie, and she's little, and she's got gray hair, and da-da-da-da. And she was like, oh, yes, that was his mother, and she died really old. And I was like, yeah, well, that's what she's showing me. But he was like full center, like, this is about me, I'm coming forward type of thing. And she was kind of just in the background, kind of like holding onto his arm. And I go, where is your grandmother? Is she alive, or has she passed? And she said, oh, no, she's passed. And I went, oh, okay, well, okay. I feel like we need to do some work on your grandmother, because I can't see her, I can't feel her around, and I'm not even aware of her. So maybe she requires a clearing. Maybe she requires to be told that she's not actually alive anymore, that she's actually dead. She has no body. And she's like, oh, this is really interesting. So as we go forward, I wanted that to kind of come clearer to me, so to download more so I could understand what was happening rather than jumping to conclusions. And all of a sudden, the strangest thing happened. My grandfather was standing there next to my tattoo artist's grandfather. And I went, what is happening? Now, my granddad doesn't come through very often. Every time he's come through, he's always sitting back. He's always quiet. He's never saying much. He was a pretty staunch Catholic guy, so I think he's probably still like, yep, I'm still sticking to my faith type of thing. And he watches from a distance. He does come through, but not like my other granddad, who's just like, rah, 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 like telling me like a ton of stuff. He comes through whenever he can for a chat. The other granddad is different. But here he is. And I can see him clearly. He's got his cowboy hat on. He's got this big smile. He's about the same height as my tattoo artist's granddad, maybe slightly shorter. And he's standing there, and they're just watching us while I'm getting my tattoo. And I'm like, this is really strange. Like, what is the point of this? So I started asking more questions, and I said, look, So our granddads are both here right now, and I've just got to ask you a question, okay? So my granddad liked to go to the pub, and he liked to go to the pub and sit there with his friends, and I've got a funny feeling these two know each other. Like, where's your granddad from? And apparently they just weren't from the same place. So I was like, well, maybe they didn't know each other, but they're very, very similar. Why are they similar? Why are they here? What message do they have for us? So we're just playing with these questions and really tapping into the energy. We're like in a different vortex, a different dimension at this stage, because we're really like in between the worlds trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And then she said, well, actually, my granddad, he used to carry around a red funnel. And I said, what do you mean? And she goes, a beer funnel. He used to make home brew. And I went, oh my gosh, they're having a beer together. What? And I had said to her at the beginning, there's something to do with red. He's wearing red, or he's got something red. And that's what it was. He was carrying this red funnel of beer. And here's my granddad showing up to have a beer with him in the middle of the day, which is kind of funny because that's what I'd seen, was him sitting in the pub in the middle of the day while grandma's getting her groceries here in this little village that we live in. And I thought, oh my gosh, thank you. That's the evidence. That's hilarious. And I was like, but there's got to be something more. Surely they're not just standing here having a beer, watching one granddaughter tattoo the other. Like, that's a bit strange. Like, why would they use all the energy just for that and be very blatant in my vision? And then I said, there's something else. There's something else. And she goes, well, what did your grandfather do for a job? And I said, he was a dairy farmer. And she said, so was mine. And I went, oh my God, okay, cool, thank you. There's another evidence. Obviously, we require that. And I go, there's something else. What else is it? And then I said to her, what was your grandfather's name? And she said, Pat. And I went, so was mine. Mine was called Pat as well. His first name wasn't Pat, but he was always called Pat. Like, that was his name. It was his middle name, which was Patrick. But always short for Pat. I'm getting goosebumps now as I'm talking about this. And it's making me quite teary. So it's making me feel the emotions of them coming through. So it's quite interesting because, you know, they're kind of stepping in right now during this podcast. So she was like, no way. So she's concentrating on my tattoo, and my eyes are like half shut because I can see with my eyes shut anyway. And I was like, oh my gosh, they've just stopped chatting to each other and now they're looking directly at us. What is going on? This is like what I'm seeing in my head, right? But there was too much evidence to show that what I was seeing and feeling was actually correct because of the evidence. So therefore I had to believe the next part that came forward, because the human brain is kind of like, no, this can't be possible. And this is my whole entire point of this podcast, is to show you what is possible. And they're looking at us, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable now. Okay, guys, what would you like to tell us? And I said, okay, I need to get these answers like out of them. Like, I need to know what's happening, because the truth is, my tattoo artist and I, we're both very conscious in many different ways. We're both very similar in many different ways. We're both very connected to the galactic. We both do light language. We both connect that way. We both have a very huge awareness, and we're both very psychic. So we're very good at reading other people's energies with no judgment, but we are willing to tell them what that next step is when they're ready to hear it. So we are kind of like guides and channels for the galactic. I don't really know how else to say it, but that's how we connect together as like a duo. And this is exactly what they told me. They turned around and they said, we are very similar, and so are you. Victoria, the way you do it is on a platform to reach as many people as possible, to wake people up, to help people know what that next step is, because you dive into the aura, you can see it, you can feel it, and you are one to many. And then they said about my tattoo artist, they said to her, she is the same as me, very similar. We have the same mission, but she doesn't do it on the platform. She's got a lot of people around her, a lot of friends. She socializes a lot. She talks a lot about this stuff in her social settings. She goes and they do night watching. She goes and she has fun and joy. She's creative. She's expansive. She's a phenomenal person. I wanted to say human being, but she's a human being, but she's a phenomenal being, and she's here for a massive reason. And her and I experience very similar things, yet we are so different. I don't hang out with groups of people talking about the stuff unless it's on my platform in my program. So we're doing the same thing, but we're doing it in different ways. And this is exactly what they told me, and not so many words, but that's what I got. And I told her that. And then I said to her, there's something else that we're similar with, and this is going to be really interesting. And then I said, have you heard of human design? And basically, if you haven't heard of human design, the long story short is, when we come down here on Earth, there's these 5 designs. So there's projector, reflector, manifest generator, manifestor, and mani-gen. There's these 5 human designs that we come into. You can figure out what your one is, or you can check out my podcast that I did with Kerry about human designs and how we can align to them. And it's huge. It's total game changer. It actually explains your personality. It's based on your aura and your star sign, and when all of these different things, and it's combined. There's a lot to it, but basically it just tells you how you should live, like how many hours you should kind of work, and what your strategy of life is. Like if you're meant to wait for an invitation, if you're actually meant to be the creator, whatever it is, right? So there's heaps of podcasts on human design. So anyway, I said to her, have you heard of this? And she's like, no. So I started telling her about it, and I started telling her about how it's changed my life and how I'm a projector, therefore I don't work as much as I used to because I get exhausted, and how I'm really psychic and da-da-da-da. She's like, oh yeah, real fascinating. I'll look into that. And I was thinking, holy shit, I really feel like she's like me. I feel like she perceives like me. I wonder what she is. And all of the human designs are phenomenal. They are really, really, I mean, everyone's phenomenal. We just have different ways of functioning. And so I sent her through the free test to figure out what human design you are. You put your birth date in, where you're born, da-da-da-da. She was the same as me. She's a projector. But the interesting thing was her chart, her human design chart, so you can see all the different meridians and all the gateways, and it shows you basically a picture of your human design, was nearly identical to mine. Right from the gates to the centers, we had the same defined centers, the same non-defined centers. She had one more defined center, which was the root, and she's very grounded within herself, and that's probably why she's got lots of friends and she's always out doing things, because she's very, very strong within her own self. So without going too much into it, basically we had that in common, but right down to our charts were nearly identical, which is crazy. I've never seen it before. So what was the whole point of this? The whole point was, in some strange way, the whole point from me being late, for me having the wrong day, from me cancelling the client and having to rebook her on the next day, which was the most phenomenal earth kind of shaking, shattering type of session I ever had either. From all of that happening, it all happened for divine timing. Those grandfathers had to come through in that precise moment together to tell us, girls, we are similar. So are you. You have a mission. The time is of the essence. Go do your mission. It was nearly like an energetic kick up the butt of going, you're on the right path, you're on the right track, the things that you're talking about are legit, the things and your visions that you're having are on point. Go do it the way that you do it. So you can go off with your friends and chat to them and do this and this and this and this and this and go live. And Victoria, you can go and do your podcast and do it whichever way is fun for you. The truth is, if you get me in a group of friends, I'm not going to start talking about the stuff because I do it for a job. I do it on my platform. I'm just Victoria, and I just sit there kind of quietly, just laughing and having fun and, you know, not going too deep about anything because my job is quite deep and she's a bit different. So Yeah, I really, really freaking loved that story and how easy it happened without trying, but just how asking a question of what I thought I saw in the corner of my eye, and then it ended up progressing into having, there was a ton of spirits behind them as well, but I was like, okay. Look, I do want to enjoy this experience of relaxing and getting my arm tattooed. There's a needle in my arm currently. So I know that tattoo will be extra special because that happened as well, and it will always be imprinted on my arm. But the whole point is you can ask a question and then receive an answer, then ask another question and receive another answer, then ask another question and receive another answer. And before you know it, you've just done a full-blown reading. Going back to the grandmother, I would love to just talk about that for a second as well, is I have this awareness and this ability to know if somebody is conscious or not, if they are dead or if they're alive. So sometimes I see alive people in a reading, and I can see them, I can feel them, I can feel their vibration, I can feel how they feel, I can feel what their life was, I can feel all these things, but they're not dead, they're alive because they're just energy, just like people that have passed. So anyway, I had to ask, is your grandmother alive? And she said no. And then I was like, where is she? And she had said, look, I honestly, she doesn't come through very often, if at all. I can't exactly remember what she said, but basically it was that energy of she doesn't come through, but Grandad does. And I was like, that's strange because I usually see them both together or they come through at some stage. So then I said, okay, does she know she's passed? And I got a bit of a no. And I was like, oh, how did she pass? And then she told me, and I went, okay, yeah, cool. So do you mind if I clear her? And she said, please go for it. So then I taught her how to do clearings and I did it with her and we cleared her and the most beautiful thing happened. And what I mean by clear is I basically say, do you know that you've passed away, my darling? And they say, what? And I'm like, you're dead. And they're like, oh, shit. And then I show them the possibilities of what they can choose now, and they're ever so grateful. It's like a kid at Christmas. And I feel like crying now because when a spirit has been gone for years and years and years and they have no idea that they're dead, they're stuck in this like loop. And to be honest, it's like an unconscious loop, but at the same space, same time, they don't know any different. It's not like they're lingering around in purgatory or anything like that. It's more like they're still living the same thing over and over and over. So there's no difference between whether they know they're dead or not. You know what I mean? So, or alive, I should say. So I told her that she'd passed and I told her there was more possibilities and there was nothing to fear because everything is perfect. And there she was next to Grandad, with a smile, showing me her height, showing me her hair, showing me that she was holding his hand with the biggest smile looking at us. And I said, she's here now. Your grandma's here now. She's fine. She's perfectly fine. We like kicked the ass of the fear, basically. We blasted the fear. And here she is now, and she's happy. And she's smiling. And my tattoo artist was like, whoa, that's so cool. And then she showed me photos, which I love seeing photos after a reading because it's another evidence, another confirmation. It makes me feel good. And from time to time, I'm like, hang on, that wasn't the person I was seeing. Can I look at the other grandfather? And then I'm like, it was that one. So the long and the short of it was she showed me these photos and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly who I saw. This is exactly who we've been talking to for the last 3 hours. This is exactly the grandmother who we've awoken from her sleep type of thing. This is such a gift. And she showed me her other grandparents too. And I was like, see, I do not resonate with those people. I have no idea who they are. I've never met them in my life. But then the ones that I'd just been talking to in spirit, it's like I just had a dinner date with them. And that's the thing that I want you guys to know about spirit, right? Where I'm not just the medium, I'm a part of it, right? And if you're a medium or if you want to do magnificent mediumship and become one, then I tell you this now. When I'm doing a reading and there's a grandma, and there's a granddaughter, and there's me, and so I'm talking to the granddaughter who's alive and the grandmother's there, it is like us all going out for a cup of coffee. I've got to get to know the grandma and the granddaughter, and they've got to get to know me. It's like the three of us are going out for brunch, or we're going for a walk, or we're going out for a cup of coffee. And why the heck would a spirit just want to jump on through and tell me a whole lot of stuff? Sometimes they are really keen, and I know that a lot of amazing, well-known mediums, they get that instantly. But for me, it's more like a, hey, I'm right here. And when you're ready to chat, let's chat. I respect them like they are alive. I talk to them as if they are just the being that they were when they were alive. And how would I do that? I would say, hello, my name is Victoria. So nice to meet you. I've been talking to your granddaughter. Is there anything that you would like to share with her? Can you give me some evidence? And do you know that you're dead? Okay, cool. Well, let's carry on. What would you like me to say? What would best benefit your granddaughter? And that's how I do it. Now, it happens lots of different ways. Sometimes the spirit don't want to look at me for a while, and then they do, and then they want to full-blown give me a message. Like, it happens differently all the time. Sometimes they're jumping around and their hair's changing color. Other times they're flying, and other times it's just literally like a film roll where I'm just getting little images thrown at me, and they can't stay for long. So, I don't know why all of that happens, and I would be very arrogant to tell you why, because the truth is there's just so many amazing questions. And the one thing that we truly know is that we will leave this body. We will leave this body, and that is actually a fact. Whether life after death is a fact, in my experience, it completely, totally is, because every time I've done a reading, there's just been way too much evidence. And I love it how people go, well, mediums, they can research that and they can do that and they can do that. But why would they? Like, that's just dumb. Why would they do that when there's plenty of ways, especially where we live here in New Zealand, plenty of ways to make money. You wouldn't have to go do like a little reading and go and Facebook stalk them and stuff. Like, who could be bothered? Like, only skeptics would say that stupid type of stuff. Anyway, guys, Magnificent Mediumship Program is on early bird, and it is on early bird until the 11th of December 2020. So the 11th of January, this program kicks off. So it's only in 5 weeks' time. And it's going to kick off, and it's going to be phenomenal. We are going to open up things and possibilities and capacities that you didn't even know that you had. We are going to be doing activations. We are going to be doing ascending. We are going to be doing downloading and integrating. We are going to be doing all of these things. And if this is light and expansive for you and you have no idea what I just said, but it feels right, or maybe you do know exactly what I said, then book a clarity call with me or just sign up. You can go to www.halohealing.nz. All the details are on there. There's a lot of support in this team. There's a lot of support. There's going to be a Facebook group. There's going to be weekly calls. There's going to be downloads and meditations, and there's going to be card reading, certification. It's going to be amazing. And a lot of people are coming for different reasons. So they're coming because they want to become a medium. Some of them are becoming because they want to become more intuitive, or they want their businesses to expand on a spiritual level as well as a practical level. So there's so many reasons why Magnificent Mediumship is going to be incredible. It is going to magnify your gifts 1,000%. And it's going to shift a whole lot of things within the human body and also within the world. So I am a channel. I bring down a lot of information from the galactic and from my spirit team. There's soul retrievals and implant removals, and you may not know what those are, but let's just say that we make sure that you're whole and we bust out any fear to do with spirit, with the entities, and I teach you a whole lot of different things. It's an amazing program. So if this is a fit for you, let me know. You can check out the show notes, check out the website, or you can book a clarity call. So I'll pop them all into the show notes. I hope you have enjoyed this story. I'm going to go and make sure that my tattoo artist send this to her so she can hear it as well. And have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. And that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for joining the Release Your Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love to hear from you. So please leave a review and tell me what your favorite takeaway from today was. There is so much more from where this came from. You can also find me at Holistic Energy Shifting on Facebook, where you can find more content, more coaching, and more guidance.
Have a grand and glorious day, and I'll see you next time.